I'm excited to share Bill as an exclusive sponsor of the Thrivecast. They have been sponsoring the Thrivecast for so long. Thank you, Bill. Our firm has been using Bill for over a decade now. We actually use it in all of our foundational CFO and controllership engagements. We have to turn all of our clients' financial processes digital, and we do that with Bill. And you can check out some webinars and blogs and even toolkits that I build with Bill to help in your firm. So thank you, Bill, for being a sponsor of the Thrivecast. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Thrivecast. We love to help the accounting profession know what is going on with all the things we're dealing with in the profession, and it is a lot of things. So I'm really excited. I love it when I get to talk to Tom Hood, and everybody knows who he is anyway. So he's going to help us understand some information. So he's the EVP of Business Growth and Engagement for the AICPA and the Business Learning Institute. I believe Tom was the founder of the Business Learning Institute in Maryland many years ago. So he did step onto the global stage 23 years ago as the CEO of the Maryland Association of CPAs. Very innovative in our industry and brought a lot of our profession forward. So I'm excited to have Tom on the show. So Tom, thanks for joining us on the Thrivecast.
All right, Jason, it's always good to see you. I love what you guys are doing in the whole Thrival thing. It's cool to see you keeping that community moving. So,
very cool.
So hello to all the Thrival members and folks watching this podcast. It is a pleasure to be here. So actually, I'm 3 years into my job here at the AICPA and SEMA.
Wow.
And having a ball. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, I know we're going to talk about pipelines. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Well, one thing I want to start with is really just trying to understand this 150-hour rule. I don't know why this is so divisive, I guess, or I don't even know if that's the right word, but can you just start with any updates on the 150-hour rule you know about, because you're on the cutting edge of what that is?
Yeah, so, I think the reason is when you think about all the complexities of what's going on in the talent pipeline, the easy thing to think about is this extra 30 credits called the 150-hour requirement, which we put into the Uniform Accountancy Act when we got uniformity across the whole profession.
Right.
And that led to what we now call mobility, meaning you can transfer from state to state without getting a new license, without paying a fee.
Right.
And you can't escape the regulators on both the state you go to and the state you come from. So That concept was what drove all that. And it was based on a principle of a fundamental, educational background that everybody accepted, which at that point was the 150 hours. Extra 30 hours was designed to create a learned profession. 30 hours was not meant to be more accounting, interestingly enough. It was meant to be analytics, technology, all the things that we say we need that were even back then, 15, 20 years ago, we were saying we need these skills.
Yeah.
So that was the intention. And that's what got enacted in various ways across the country. So now the focus is, well, if we could take back that 30, it is an expense, it is a barrier in some cases. And so if we could get rid of that, wouldn't that fix the pipeline problem?
Right. That's the connection. We've got a pipeline problem. 150 hours is causing the pipeline problem. I think that's what people are hooking up, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Because it's easy, right? It's like everyone wants a simple solution and a simple explanation of what's going on. And that's a very easy one to go. It must be that. And there's no question it is contributing to it. But it's far from the only issue. In many cases, far from the biggest issue.
Okay. So you are, I think recently you've even been going through there, I don't know, there's now a council or something. Yeah. And is that it's like independent that's trying to decide this, that's apart from the AICPA?
It's sponsored by the AICPA, but it is got its own separate identity. And you're going to have a link that you can share with everyone, but it's called the National Pipeline Advisory Group. So what happened, Jason, is a year ago, and we were talking about this probably a little bit over a year ago with with you and the thought leaders up in New York, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yep.
So that's where the big aha, I think, for you was, wait a minute. I mean, it's not, you guys, first of all, can we fix it?
Right.
So that's the other myth that's out there, is this should be easy for the AICPA just to wave our magic wand and fix it. So the first thing I want to make sure your readers, your listeners know, or watchers, is that it's baked into every state law. It's regulated, right? Our profession isn't owned by the AICPA. It's owned by every state board of accountancy, which is a legislative structure coming out of every state. So when I was in Maryland, my job was to make sure we enacted legislation that would help our profession and stop bad legislation. And that was one of those things that we helped shape for years. So that's where it comes from. So if it was easy for us to fix, we probably would have done something like that.
I see.
But as that debate went on a year ago at the council, so now let's tie in so there's kind of two, if you will, councils. National Pipeline Advisory Group, aka NPEG. We have to have an acronym, Jason. So
no, we got to have a cool acronym.
NPEG. That is the structure, the group that was created by the AICPA governing body called council.
Okay.
So council is like Congress for our profession. There are representatives. There's appointed representatives, one from each state, like a senator.
Yeah.
Then there's elected representatives that are based on the number of CPAs in that state. So Maryland, for instance, at the time we had one senator, one representative, and then we had 3 volunteered appointed members.
Okay.
We had 4 representatives. California had like 15.
Wow, so that is a lot like the legislative body.
Absolutely. That's exactly where it comes from. And the law professions govern that way, and architects, most professions are governed similar. So that's our governing body. It meets twice a year and once over split into 4 subdivisions at the regional council meeting, which we just had yesterday in New York City. So I'll give you but anyhow, a year ago at the council meeting in May, the group was saying, we're hearing all this stuff about the 120, 150. We've got to do something. And council basically charged the AICPA, us, to say, what's your plan? How are you going to fix it?
Okay.
Right. So then we at that point had already been hearing this and working on it. So we came back and said, here are the things we're doing. We actually have 12 major initiatives that we have been doing for the last 2 years. I'll talk about those later. But the big thing was we said we're going to form this National Pipeline Advisory Group and get data about the issue. So we're not going to just act on everyone's emotion, which is kind of what's going on right now. We're going to get good data and an independent group to give us advice on what we should do. That was formed a year ago in May. And let me just tell you a quick bit about this group, right? So the
NPEG, that's what we're talking about. Okay, this is a new advisory council.
Advisory group, that's it. And that is reflecting a group of diverse perspectives from across the profession, represent firms of all sizes, academia, state CPA societies, regulatory bodies like NASBA, other professional associations, and various career stages. So think about it as like a whole convening the ecosystem of our profession in an advisory group. I think it's about 30 people. And that group's been meeting pretty much monthly over the last year to come up with what they're going to do. And the latest part is they made a survey with a lot of the ideas that we've gathered from council, from the states, from all the places that people are thinking about. And all those ideas are in this survey. And we're asking people to look at it, read it, and fill it out so that when we get to May, in just a couple months, we're going to be looking at it one more time from this advisory group. And then council will say, all right, what are we going to go do now about this whole issue? And that will be hopefully more refined ideas that we can actually start to implement in addition to all the things we're already doing.
Okay. So, all right. So just a couple of summaries, which is really good, actually, just defining this council in the AICPA. Yeah. I don't know if I've heard of that governing body before. I wonder.
Most people don't. They don't know. They just don't know. But
That's huge.
It's how we work, right? So the state CPA societies have a seat at the table. I mean, literally, it is like Congress, right? The states have representatives, and they all get together. And so the AICPA is a function of that. And that's how we take our direction, both on what do we do, bylaws, all the new initiatives come through that group.
Okay. That's amazing. So we have some great governance, really, that's kind of protecting our profession. It sounds like a lot of professions have that, so that's good that we have it. And so that council really directs it, like challenge. It says, "Hey, AICPA, what are you going to do about this?" And y'all have to respond to that council.
Correct. Then they advise our board of directors, who we all report to. Like Barry Melanson, our CEO, he reports directly to the board. And all of us under Barry are working under that, and the board approves our strategy, tells us, right, that's where all the resources and direction comes from, but based on that council input.
Okay. And so that's where this committee came from.
Correct.
And the survey. And so we're going to put the survey in the show notes of this show, and it's important that everybody gives their feedback.
Yes.
Because y'all are going to use that to influence maybe the direction of what this group then informs the council or says, Correct. Here's what we should do.
That's exactly right. They will take the results of this report and present it at the May council meeting coming up. So it's been a 1-year time frame from when everyone was riled up saying we got to do something to here's how we're going to attack it. All the council members voted, and it was pretty much almost unanimous that they're going to go do this. And then that's how we got moving.
Okay. Now, so just another quick summary. I think a lot of this is important to summarize. It may be, old hat for a lot of people, but back to the 150-hour rule, which is a rule now that we need to sit for the exam. Kind of that's the deal for our profession. And just a summary of what you said, that the AICPA does not have control over the 150-hour rule. It has legislatively been put in as a regulation in each state board. And that took 10 years to get everybody to agree, first of all. So what got locked in 10 years ago is the 150-hour rule. Everybody agreed, and also agreed to mobility.
Correct.
But those are not the same thing. 150-hour rule, mobility are not the same thing, but was it done at the same time?
So once we got uniformity in every state's license, so there was a time when licenses were very different from state to state.
Yeah.
One state required these courses, another state was like a degree plus this. So every state had their own. It was a crazy quilt of legislative issues, right, that were all mapped in. That's not unlike every other thing that's out there. We were the first and only profession to really get good, solid mobility. The nurses are kind of behind us with a compact. The architects are making progress there. And to a degree, the engineers, slightly different versions, but that's what we've all been trying to do. Lawyers are not anywhere near substantial equivalency. So just to give you some perspective, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's made our profession mobile, especially through COVID. But the devil's in the detail. So what we got agreement to was this concept of substantial equivalency, which meant as long as you have the fundamentals of the 150, even if you have a couple of nuances, we have to get you to agree that you will accept another state's 150 equal to yours, substantially equal, and their experience requirement, because every state had different experience requirement. Maryland, we had no experience at one point. We've added, I think, a 1-year general.
Okay.
But there are some states that have 3 to 5 years of experience.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Right. So this would meant everyone's got to have a different set of rules. We said, well, we got to get agreement to by the boards of accountancy and their, quote, legislatures in every state to agree that this model bill of basically these framework, education, experience, and ethics, those 3 E's had to be substantially equal. And once we got that conformity in every state, now we could then move around the country without any problem.
Okay. And I think I remember close to 30 years ago when I was getting mine, in the state of South Carolina, I had to get some audit. I think maybe 2 years of audit. And now you're telling me that was probably just a South Carolina law. I probably didn't know at the time, but that's the only thing I cared about because they were going to give me my license.
Correct. That's exactly right. And every state had their own independent way of thinking about that and what was required. And then with this substantial equivalency, we took away that specific area and saying, if you agree on these basic principles that are in substantial equivalency, which is now in the Uniform Accountancy Act, then you don't have to worry about your own state specific stuff. You'd still have to do that in South Carolina, more than likely. But once you got your license, then you could move to Maryland or New York or anywhere else without all that licensing stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. So and a lot of this is good background for the 150-hour rule. So the 30 hours got added on there. It was after I got my license because I don't have a master's degree. So because I was never, I never needed that. So was it good that the 30 hours were general enough that you could add anything? Because now people are adding silly things into the 30 hours. And of course, that was not the intention to add underwater basket weaving to your course list. So what was the deal with those 30 hours and what was not said in that should have been? Or however?
So we actually had a model curriculum recommended by the AICPA. And I'll give you the perfect example because I enacted it in the state of Maryland. That's how old I am. So I've been around quite a while. And when I was doing that as a volunteer, I wasn't even at the CEO level. I was a CFO and on a committee. And I was active in our legislative committee. And I was at the time when we were going to introduce the bill. So the AICPA worked with all the states. We had this all worked out. I went into the Senate committee. I'll never forget. We put the bill forward and all of a sudden the lobbyist grabs us and the University of Maryland shows up to testify against us. And University of Maryland is the flagship university of the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And they said, we're the ones that dictate curriculum. You should have come to us first. And oops, that wasn't part of the plan that we understood. So we ended up going to our lobby and say, what should we do? He goes, well, if you say you're going to go forward, they're going to say no, and you're probably going to lose that bill.
Wow.
And when you lose that bill, it could take 5 years or more before you ever get it back. So the decision was, do you take it without specifics on the 30, otherwise known as the empty 30?
Right, the empty 30.
Or do you try to fight the University of Maryland? So you know what the advice was. The advice was strip it and go back and visit it later, which is what we did. And that's what happened in many states. The land grant colleges, who are extremely powerful, and rightly so, were the ones who were saying, you guys should have been socializing. And that's something we didn't know back then. This is 20 plus years ago. So as a result, you had a little bit of nuance as that was done, but you still had substantial equivalency once you figured out your own state deal. So Maryland was an empty 30, although I know hundreds of CPAs in the state of Maryland, and I don't know any that took underwater basket weaving, which every time this comes up, somebody brings up, and I'm like, show me that CPA who actually took underwater basket weaving.
Yeah.
The answer is it is possible, and they could have got 3 credits for it. But I would argue that maybe they're going to be accounted for a aquarium or a marine biologist. And they might need that.
So it might work in some very specific circumstances. Okay. Well,
tongue in cheek.
That's very funny. That was good. So let's take a quick break, and then I want to come back and just ask some more pipeline questions.
Perfect.
Are you tired of grappling with inventory management complexities? Designed for QuickBooks Online, SOS Inventory ensures seamless synchronization of precise tracking of inventory at all stages, empowering you with unparalleled accuracy. So with integration spanning Shopify, UPS, BigCommerce, PayPal, and more, SOS Inventory can streamline your processes effortlessly. So join the global network of satisfied users spanning 60-plus countries now. Begin your risk-free 2-week trial today at live.sosinventory.com/trial. And don't forget to use promo code THRIVE for a 10% discount on your first 6 months of subscription service. Explore the wide selection of features at sosinventory.com and revolutionize your accounting practice. All right. Tom. So I had somebody on the show not long ago, Dr. Josh McGowan, an accounting professor at Troy University in Alabama. And I was asking him a lot about pipeline issues. And he's like, the 150-hour rule is not causing the pipeline issue. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was pretty clear. He's like, our profession doesn't pay people enough. So, and he's like, and then he said, thank you, because all of you have been raising the first year salaries of all of our CPAs that are coming out of my classes. And so thank you very much. So I'm here pitching hard for people to come into the profession. But he said when they make a decision about going into accounting, sometimes they're in high school and choosing. That's what I was 2 years into college. I was in rock bands. I was a little bit late, so I needed to go ahead and pick a major. My dad was an accountant, so I finally picked something, put my base down. But he's like, a lot of people are making those decisions in high school. He's like, they don't have a clue what 150 whatever even means. So they're not the point at which they're making the choices, or even his freshman classes in Troy University. He's like, they're not making it based upon 150-hour rules. These kids, they're trying to pick, where can I get some salary and make a living? And he's like, this 150-hour rule is not preventing people from coming into the profession. Now, this is very controversial. That's his opinion. And he's like, I've been on a lot of shows where people completely disagree with me too. So what do you think the pipeline problem is? What do you think personally is causing it?
So I think it's a mixture of things, like anything. It's not an easy answer, but I can tell you that when we give people the background that we just talked about, that this is legislative, not something we can wave a magic wand and fix, and that it's going to take 5 to 10 years to go through and fix. If we go back to 120, you won't have mobility. So, for instance, Minnesota, I think even South Carolina might be putting bills in. If they go back, those CPAs won't be able to practice in other states without getting another license. And if you have remote workers, they're going to have to get licensed in 2 states to work for your firm if you're using them to sign returns and such like that. So that's where the devil's in the details. And that might even vary. We're trying to fix that we're trying to make that even easier because we know it's going to happen. But that's why we've been trying to protect mobility before we jump to what the solution is. Now, when you look at the issues, what's causing the pipeline, a couple key things. Career competition is intense in colleges right now.
Sure.
The accounting major has dropped down from one of the top 3, both in money coming out and in selection, down to below the top 5. First time in a decade. What's bumping up ahead of it? Finance, because the Wall Street market's hot.
Sure.
And technology. AI, data analytics, all those things. So that's number one. Number 2 is the compensation issue that you got to. Our compensation fell. We used to be always above the top 5. We fell down. We're down like in the bottom 6, 7, 8. And now that's what students are looking at. So when they go, where's my career? That's a big one. The other big one is the work is boring.
Right.
And the word's getting out. Like I keep saying, all you have to do is go on Reddit and look at the accounting channel, and you'd be horrified what they're saying about our profession. And these are all the early stage people in these firms. So we've got to fix that. Now, one other thing, why do we have a course in college? I think you'll identify with this. Intermediate was made to do what? Weed out the people that didn't really know accounting. Do you remember that?
That's right.
They failed like half the people.
Right.
So we have a horrible pipeline challenge, and we have professors who are proud about getting you in the class and go, this is the weed out class. If you don't pass this, you're done. And so we have a very leaky pipeline from the minute they start the major to before they graduate. Many of them are already getting out. Then we get them into a firm or a company, and we're treating them. They're doing what we call, one of my CFOs just called it, the soul-sucking entry-level work.
Right.
That we used to have to do. A progressive firm that's automating things, that won't be the case. But many firms still have that going on. And that's where they start to go, this is what I went to college for?
Yeah. Yeah.
So those 4 factors, every time I poll a group of sophisticated CPAs, corporate or firms, 150 drops down to the 5th issue when you rank all those pieces.
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting. And probably in reality, there's probably a lot of other things that play into, right? Our economy and our world culturally, generationally is very complicated. So, I mean, so we can't actually pinpoint one thing. So it's faulty even to say 150 hours is causing the pipeline issue. Of course, it's way more complicated than that.
Correct.
And I think one thing you're saying now, which there are states putting laws into place to go back to the 120, dropping that empty 30 hours. And you're saying if one state does that, it breaks mobility, which it took y'all 10 years to create. Does it break mobility for all states?
Breaks it for that state.
That state, right? Okay.
Going into other states.
And if a state does that, other states will follow. Is that right? It will, or not necessarily?
It's going to be based on. So the state societies would be driving this because they're the ones that would be watching their state legislature. So it could come from a senator or a delegate, or it could come from the state society. In Minnesota, I think the state society is helping to sponsor it. I'm not sure about South Carolina, but when a state does that, right, they're putting the bill in. They get sponsors and off they go into the legislature. And then it's up to does it get voted and does it get amended? But once it's enacted, that's when the folks in that state have to think about what happens when they go to another state. Now, I don't know if you might be too young to remember what happened when you had your license and there wasn't mobility and you wanted to go into another state. So
I did do that.
Okay.
Yep, I did do that. I had to go into North Carolina to do some work, and I had to apply for a license. That's right.
What was that like? What did you have to do? Do you remember any of that?
Well, it was a pain in the butt. You know, you got to fill out all the paperwork and give transcripts. I mean, you got to go through the whole 9 yards. So
correct. Everything but sitting for the exam again.
That's right.
But you had to go get your college transcripts.
Yeah.
To verify your education.
Yeah, and prove my experience.
Prove your experience. Proof that you passed the CPA exam in South Carolina.
Yeah.
So you got to call your state board and say, can you give me my exam results from, in my case, it would be 1982. I think good luck with that, right? And then you have to resubmit all of that. Now, if you had to do that with 50 employees, that would be a big pain.
Yeah. Well, we're a pretty modern firm. We've been virtual for over 12 years. We're completely virtual. Now we're growing, we're adding, and we don't care where we add a CPA from. Right now, it's not top of mind for us, me and my partner, Julie. We're trying to find the right people. And if we had to start eliminating people based upon the state they're in, that's a major it's a major slowdown to the entrepreneurial nature of our firm and how we're trying to grow and add jobs.
And that is our biggest concern at the AICPA, Jason. We did not want to create that environment that we lived in for years before all that in this environment. Because the other part, in case you haven't noticed, we're more divided politically than we ever have been in the United States.
Totally.
Which means the state legislatures are equally divided in that respect, meaning to get anything through in a bipartisan way, which you have to do to get something like this passed, it's next to impossible. So it was hard 10, 15 years ago when we started down this path. It's almost impossible today. And that was our biggest concern. So we were trying to say, we've got this movement and an advisory group. We're making movement with some things we're doing and initiatives. Give us some time before we get the results of this, before we start enacting legislation on the fly.
Okay, that makes sense. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I remember when we were in New York City, and I really can't recall, but you're like, what's really happening with licensing? And you told me something about they're trying to pull the accountancy board licensing to hairdressers or something. Can you tell me what the fear was? And I'm like, that sounds bad. So
it is. That's the other big risk that we worry about. It's the anti-licensing movement. And Interestingly enough, this is one thing that the far left and the far right actually agree on. So the far left wants more access to occupations like being a CPA. So they're saying just create like a Yelp rating system for your CPAs and your engineers and your doctors, and let the public rate them and give them licensing or eliminate them based on that. Skip the licensing process. That's extra cost, extra barrier, extra hassle. So I'm in Maryland, I'm imagining driving over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and there's a sign that says this bridge was developed by an engineer with a 4.2 rating on Yelp. I'm not sure I feel real good about driving over that bridge.
No.
It's going to be the same thing with your financial advice or your audit. But on the far right side, what they want is they want to eliminate the money. So there's money to make a state board and have it staffed and to have the licensing administration and all that stuff. And they're like, this is just wasted money. Can't we do the Yelp thing too and forget all that?
I see. So that means they're going to just say, why can't there just be one licensing department in every state and you cover all of them? I mean, it's going to be the acupuncturist.
They're not even doing that. They're saying eliminate all the licensing and replace it with some social construct that we can track it that way. So just because think about all the money we'll save and all the people that will be able to get into these professions.
Yeah, that sounds really bad.
And there were 80 of those bills in last year.
Okay, so the AICPA really, just to summarize two key things, is you're wanting states to not break mobility. You don't want that to happen. So
just until we get through this pipeline advisory results and we know where we're headed. Okay,
so that's one thing. The other one is of course, the AICPA would not want the no licensing type culture, right? That's not, the AICPA exists to manage this licensure.
And to protect all of you. That's the protection of the public interest, right? Is it the license is our trademark that others can't do without going through all the rigor that we did. And we don't want other people practicing without that rigor against all of you.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, this is good stuff. So Tom, as we're wrapping up, like I've had I think last year I was talking at our Deeper Weekend conference. I said, "Hey, this is my 30th year in my career." So it's really great. Your career, how long has yours been? It's been way longer than that.
Let's see, 82, so 42 years.
Okay, I've loved my career.
Me too,
man. How do you? But not everybody does. So there's a lot of CPAs that this job has sucked for 40 years, and I've gone through 40, tax seasons, and it's really beat the life out of me. So how do you tell people, no, it does? Like we're entrepreneurs. We built the firm we want to work in. We're not working 80 hours a week.
Right.
And our employees are like, well, that's good because I would never work for you if you did. So employees have way more power than the firm owner. So that power shift has completely changed now. So it's how do we get the word out, from me and you to go, y'all, this is the choice you want to make. This is a great career. You can do a million different things. So what are we doing to get the word out? I mean, that's just opinions, I guess. What do you think?
Well, I think the fundamental flaw is when we lose our purpose.
Yeah.
So why did you become a CPA, and what were you trying to do? More than likely, it had something to do with helping a good career and helping clients.
Yep.
In my case, I was in the corporate side, so it was always about helping the business do better and be that great advisor, right? Even though I had to do soul-sucking work because it wasn't automated, but now it's on the brink of being automated. So if there's ever been a time to restore hope, it's now, because we're getting the automation we've been talking about for 20 years. So the point would be, if your purpose is to help businesses or individuals thrive, to use the thrival idea,
right,
thrive in this rapidly changing world, then that's what we're doing. We're trusted advisors with an expertise in the language of business. No one else can do that. And that's why we're so valued. But if you don't value yourself enough to pay yourself the right way or charge for the right thing,
right,
and you make your employees do work for clients that don't respect them and all that, that's how we get and lose that. Then you're stuck in the treadmill and you're just grinding every day. And then it naturally feels horrible.
So just like any profession, and we're not the only profession dealing with this, right? But just like any profession, we bring a lot of this on ourselves, right? We allow low prices. We allow ourselves to be commoditized. We allow clients to really own us and tell us what to do. And I don't know, I guess I think I have seen generally, CPAs, especially because I work only with CPAs in public practice, typically, they truly want to help people.
Yes.
And that balance for them sometimes is just becoming a doormat. And it's hard to not become that when all you're wanting to do is help people. So there's a balance to that. And it's hard. I guess it's hard for any profession.
But it gets back to what's your vision for your firm. And if your firm is trying to help people for the right price so that you can get the best talent and you can afford time so that you're completely on your game, which means you have to be recharged also, then that's what you're talking about. So you're going to say, I'm going to take vacations. So are my staff.
Yep.
You're not going to abuse them. We're not going to do fire drills.
Mm-mm.
And when you get to that, and we're going to charge a little more because we're worth it.
Yeah.
And we'll take care of you like nobody else.
Man, that's good stuff. Well, Tom, one last question. So I won't ask you this crazy 30-year, what is it like in 30 years? But I think we're all seeing maybe the next 3, 5, 10 years, there's going to be some major changes. Kind of what are you seeing in the next 5 to 10 years for our profession, or what needs to happen?
So clearly AI is the big thing, right? And it's going to happen. Yes, we're at the top of the trough of disillusionment. So you're going to see people going crazy on AI, and then it doesn't do what they think. And they're going to go, oh God, that was no good. That's going to go through the trough a lot faster because the whole process is moving faster.
Right.
So think about AI and flip it to IA. So AI could replace people. Okay. And there will be some of that going on. But IA is intelligence augmented. So I'm old enough that I was back during the VisiCalc and early days of Excel. And the Wall Street Journal wrote an article that said, VisiCalc is going to be the end of the accounting profession. Wall Street Journal, not Wired magazine.
Right.
And you're like going, are you kidding me? And so what happened? Accounting blew up because all of a sudden we could all do a lot more with a lot less.
Right.
And so we were turbocharged with the power of Excel and VisiCalc.
Right. Technology.
Lotus 1, 2, 3. And that really dates me. So at any point, think about AI as the same thing, intelligence augmented, which if we augment with the tools of AI, ChatGPT, all those pieces, we'll be supercharged. And Gartner's saying we're going to have autonomous finance in the next 5 years. Autonomous. Transactions will flow in with all the robotic process automation coming from your bank feeds, your vendors, the invoices, going right to the right areas in your general ledger. You will review them and approve them. The system will learn when you do that. And it gets better every time you do that. And you're just going to be talking about what do the numbers mean, close the books in a day, and give good advice to your clients, or good tax returns, or both. That's the vision I see.
Yeah. It's and I've heard somebody say this recently, and I believe it. This is a great place. This is a great time to be in the profession, right? Because I mean, people are falling away. The pipeline's lower. Let me tell you, there's no end to client work of clients wanting us to help them.
Correct.
Through the really, because our entrepreneurs are going through a lot of complexity in their life too. And the first thing they do is they call us. It's like, what the heck is going on in my life? And we've got to interpret that for them. And we're going to charge them through the nose for it because we're valuable.
Correct.
So that means our firm, we need people. We need good people, smart people that will be willing to work hard, do good work, but also know working hard means a 40 to 45 to 50 hour a week career, sometimes during spikes.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's what it means now. And of course, that's all they'll accept, and that's okay because that's all it has to mean.
Yes.
Because you can charge clients enough so that you only have enough so that nobody's working more than that. That's what we can build. And so this is the greatest time really to be.
You've been spearheading that initiative since I've known you way back.
Yeah,
and that's the right attitude, Jason. I mean, we keep it up. This is what we're trying to do.
I love it. Well, cool. Well, Tom, thank you for this. We got kind of technical. I needed to kind of lay out some of the technical parts of it, and really just it's nice to hear from somebody from the AICPA that can kind of speak to some of the things that y'all are doing. So I appreciate you, Tom, and all that you're doing to just go to these meetings, try to explain this stuff to people in podcasts. So thank you for coming on the Thrivecast. I really do appreciate it.
It's great being here, and make sure you put in the show notes the NPEG link and everybody out there take the survey.
Nice.
So we get your feedback about what we should be doing.
Very cool. Okay. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jace.
All right. We'll see you.